This is the Brabant Bulletin, brought to you by the European Brabant Registry of America, where people, passion, and preservation are our mission.
Hey everybody, it's me, Stacy, and I'm here with Ryan Castagno. He is located out west, and really lucky to have him. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to have the opportunity to talk with you guys.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
We're a family-owned and operated business, and our family for a number of years was in the cattle industry. And in 1991, we decided to get a little bit deeper into the guiding of hunters and fishermen. So we moved from the Idaho-Utah border here to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and started doing a lot more outfitting. And that's when we kind of made that transition out of cattle and into the horses. We've got right in the neighborhood of around 220 head total in our herd. We take a lot of people on horseback rides in the summer, do some packed trips, hunting trips. We're in the process of selling our wilderness permits, so we're going to kind of retire out of the hunting and the pack trip business. Where my brother Steve and I that own and operate our business, we're both getting a little long in the tooth to be sleeping on the ground and doing all those kind of activities. But we're here in Jackson primarily doing wagon rides. We have a stagecoach that we give rides with, and then on a good year we'll take between 6,000 and 7,000 people on horseback rides.
Wow. So are you on the steps of the Yellowstone National Park on that side, or?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. My brother Steve and I, we both live in what's called the Buffalo Valley, and both of us, my brother Steve's about 6 miles from the entrance into the park system, and I'm about 9 miles from the entrance into the park system. So we, driving into the town of Jackson, where we do a lot of our business, we drive through Teton Park every day. And as I'm talking to you right now, I'm looking at the Teton Mountain Range.
Well, that's pretty
from
cool.
Our stable. So yeah, that's the people that we cater to primarily are travelers that are coming through this area, either going to or coming from Yellowstone.
So folks who find your place to go on a horseback ride, are they experienced riders?
No, I would say over 90% of the people that we take have never even touched the horse, let alone ridden one.
Oh boy, that's got to be a little stressful. Or are you kind of over that at this point?
No, it's we're 30, 5+ years into this, and it's still pretty stressful every time we send a group out. This morning we sent our first ride of the day is at 9, and then we have another ride at 9:30. And between those two rides, I think we sent out close to 35 people today already. And a lot of adults that get on that are really nervous. They've always wanted to do it, but they never have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's actually how we got our start in with the Brabants. Is we needed some horses with really good minds, and our family's been breeding. We've had stud horses and done a stud report primarily in quarter horses for the last 4 generations. But we made a switch a few years ago. I think it's been 7 years ago now, to where all of our stallions are Brabants, and we're trying to raise some horses that we can put these type of tourists on that are a little bit better minded than, in our opinion. This is strictly my opinion, and my brother Steve as well. We really like the mind of the Brabants a lot better than any other draft breed. Just their temperament, for what we do, is as good as it gets.
Now, you said you had primarily quarter horses at this point. Is that what you're crossing your stallions with?
Yeah, there is. Our herd now, we had 2 different American Belgian stud horses, and we go to the Waverly Midwest Horse Sale every spring and have done since the early 90s. And we bought a team of American Brabants from a guy, oddly enough, only about 4 hours from us. So he hauls them to eastern Iowa. We buy them in the sale in eastern Iowa, and we drag them all the way home.
And wow.
And So we get the horses home, and we were using them on our stagecoach ride, which is right downtown Jackson, Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a lot of traffic. There's a lot of foot traffic, bicycles, tour buses, you name it, those horses see it. And they just really responded to it well. And we didn't know a lot about the breed. This was 7 years ago. And we thought, well, we need to get into this a little deeper. And so we found a guy that had a Brabant stud horse in Utah, and we hauled some mares down, bred them. Really liked the babies. So the next year we hauled some more mares down, and then we ended up buying 2 studs the following year. And then we've kind of phased out of the quarter horses and the half draft stallions to where we're trying to build our mare herd up. That's right now we've got about 46 mares, and we've got 8 or 10 that are Brabant or American Brabant. And then we've got some quarter horse mares that we're putting underneath these Brabant stallions, and the offspring are phenomenal. We've got 3-year-olds that we're using here in our stable that our guides ride, that are gentle enough that I think I could put guests on them if I wanted to, but we usually wait till they're 4 before we start to use them heavily.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just very happy with the breed, very happy with the members. We've had good interactions with a lot of the people, have been very helpful with trying to get us going, and we're trying to build up. Ideally, we want to get to 60 mares where we would have 30 Brabant mares and then 30 half draft or quarter horse mares.
Nice. So your offspring are just now aging into your string, your riding string?
Into our string, yes. Yes,
Okay.
correct. We have some 4-year-olds that are in the string now. They're carrying tourists. And, we've got here at this location at Spring Creek Ranch, this is our, lack of a better term, our flagship. We do trail rides at some other locations, but we've got about 120 head of trail ride horses here at this location. And this is where we've got all of those Brabant influence horses that are working right now at this location. Our goal is to, within 10 years, everything that's here that we use would be a minimum of 25% Brabant.
Nice. So how did you learn about the European Brabant Registry of America?
It was actually Jason Julian, the president of the American Brabant Association, flew out to our ranch to look at our program and trying to, just get to know us a little bit better and what we're trying to do. And we had a bunch of mares that we wanted to get in as breeding stock mares, and they've got a different, they don't have an appendix program.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of mares because we've got a stud horse whose sire was 100% import. So he was a 50%er. And he's the one that told me about the appendix program with the EBA, and, just how there's different thresholds for, I guess, different grades of papers for the mares, or any horse, I guess, for that matter, in both of the different associations. And he told me that, there was an avenue that I could get some of our mares that we DNA tested that came back at 50% or in the 40 percentile range. And he's the one that told me to, reach out to the EBA and talk with them. And so at that point, I'd heard of the EBA, and my stud horses, one of them is double registered with the EBA and the ABA. And I reached out, got some information, and some folks were very helpful there. And Rebecca sent me some stuff on getting some of our percentage mares in, and we started that process. And now we're actually reaching out to customers that we've sold some of those fillies to, that we're trying to buy back now to increase our mares that we have in the appendix program for what we do here. Because we want to keep a lot of these colts and use them here in our program. My brother Steve and I both strongly believe in using our own stuff. We don't like to buy a lot of the horses we use. We want to know everything about them, and if they're foaled on our ranch and go through our program, we have a very I don't want to use the word intense, but very structured, very diligent desensitization program where we've got bouncy balls and flags, and we've got one of those little blinky manual that they have a sell at a car dealership.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one of those. We have one of those blowing in our barn to where we want to be able to take our colts, put them in the middle of a round pen, and bounce bouncy balls all around them, bounce them off of their sides, take a flag, run it all over them without anything on that horse's head. It'll just stand in the middle and accept it, know that it's not going to hurt them. So we catch all of our babies and saddle them almost every day through the winter time. We've got a big barn that our staff can work in the winter, because here in Wyoming where we are, we do get a lot of snow. And so we've got a good place for them to work through the winter. So when we get to the spring, these colts have seen a lot of that stuff, and we do offer a lot of horses for sale. And in fact, last fall, we literally sold horses from Alaska to New York.
Wow.
And we're in the process right now of talking with the Jacksonville, Florida Police Department. They're talking about making a switch over and using Brabant crossed horses in their program there for their crowd control and for their mounted police department. And they flew their sergeant out here. He spent 3 days with us to see our program and our horses and our training program. And so we're hopefully we can get something in place with them and start feeding horses down to those guys, and they can start using our stuff as well. But it all just goes back to the Brabant mind and how much we, value what these horses do and what they'll put up with. You can put somebody on a horse that's never ridden one, and we give them instruction. This is how you need to sit. This is where your hands need to be. This is how you turn the horse. This is what you need to do. And do you understand? And they shake their head yes. They look at you in the face. They say, yes, I understand. You turn, take 2 steps away, and they say, now wait a minute, what do I do? So we have to have a horse that's going to take care of those people.
Yeah.
And I will stand and have a conversation and argue that there is no better minded horse than the Brabant. And it's not even close in our opinion. And I feel like we have a good enough, test subject here with the traveling public of what we do to know that, because we've used Percheron influenced horses, American Belgians, Shires, Clydesdales. We even tried a handful of drums. We've spotted drafts. It's just we have to have some horses that have some bone in them. You can't have a smaller horse. They just don't hold up for what we do. These horses have to kind of ride underneath these people because they don't sit like they should.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have a horse, that can really take care of these people that, they want to have a good time and they're not trying to hurt the horse. They just don't know. So we have to have a horse that's got a little more fat cover, a little bit wider back, one that's going to really hold a saddle well. We have a lot of our horses that wear a breechin. All of our horses wear breast collars, but we put breechins on everything, back cinches, to where that saddle, we want to keep it as close to the middle of that horse as we can to help that horse out. And it's just, we are just so happy and just so grateful that we got into these Brabants. And I can't say enough good about them. And my brother and I were just so glad that we're able to find them, because if we wouldn't have bought that team, to be honest, here where we're at in Wyoming, there's just not a lot of big horses anyway. And there's just not a lot of Brabant breeders in our area. There's a couple that are around here, but we probably would have never met them.
Yeah. I think that's very serendipitous. I'm curious. So right now you're covering your Brabant studs over quarter horse mares primarily, or are you looking to take some crosses?
Well, we're looking to kind of branch out, because now that we're kind of building our herd, we have people that are inquiring that want to buy a high percentage Brabant foals.
Okay.
So we're trying to build that part of our business. We feel like we have a really good base. My brother Steve really likes Sir Quincy Dan, Poco Bueno, that type of quarter horse, the old foundation bred stuff. So we've got a lot of mares that are quarter horse mares that we really like putting back with these Brabant studs. And then we also have a couple of Pepto-Bismol bred mares, a little more athletic ability, because we do have some customers on big ranches that are buying these horses. And that's another thing is these Brabant crosses seem to be a little bit more athletic than our Persian or our American Belgian crosses were. So we can, it's opened up our I guess pool of buyers where we can reach out to some of these ranches and try to get some of our crosses onto these places, and they realize that they are fast enough to catch a cow or a calf, that you can rope on one, and when you tie off on one of these burly buggers, whatever you tied onto, you're going to drag it. So we've got a few mares for that. We've got a lot of half draft mares that are our 50%er mares that were sired by that 100% stud that we're putting back, underneath these our two stallions. I could be wrong, but I think one of he's in the high 70 percentile range, and the other one's in the mid 80 percentile range.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to put these mares back underneath those two horses right now. We're thinking about adding a third stallion, but until we get a few more mares gathered up, I think we'll hold off on that. But we're trying to be diverse enough to where if somebody comes to us and says, I want a high percentage straight Brabant, we're going to have a handful of mares. We've got 4 mares under the age of 4 right now. They're all over 70%.
Okay.
So we'll have them in the breeding program here in the next few years. And then we've got quite a few other mares that are older, that are lower percentage, between 25 to 40%, that we're breeding right now. But we just want to be able to cover that gambit of whatever they're looking for. We're going to be able to say, here's a selection, look through these. That's kind of our goal right now, is to have everything from the 1,800-pound mare down to the quarter horse mare.
Gotcha. I mean, I always like to have function in mind over fashion, but of course, a lot of folks, find the roans to be pretty flashy. Have you found that that's a pretty consistent thing in the market?
Yeah.
When you're in?
Yeah, absolutely. Our dad always said you can't ride color.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it every day. And so that's definitely that was not our deciding factor, but is absolutely unequivocally a fantastic perk. Is to be able to have, we've got one of our stallions is a blue roan, the other one's a bay roan, and to get, a really high percentage of colored offspring every year, definitely it catches people's attention. When we put horses on the internet for sale, and we try to usually sell them as yearlings, is when you put on 8 or 10 of these foals on there, and they're all strawberry roan, red roan, blue roan, bay roan, and you just trot one roan after the other, it really grabs people's attention. And a lot of people that call us say the reason why they reach out is because of we do have a lot of color.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a definite perk of the Brabants for sure.
Are you finding that the offspring you're producing height-wise tend to mature in the 15, 16 range? What are you looking at for your offspring?
We've got, I would say, 15-1 to probably 17 hands.
Okay. Our folks, we've got some big mares, but I wouldn't say anything's over 17 hands, and that's another advantage of the Brabants. You've got some of the other breeds, and I don't want to disparage. There's a lot of people who die on that hill for their breed, and that's great, and that's awesome, and that's why we all have the ability to choose what we want. But with the Brabants, where they haven't bred all that air underneath them, they're not trying to make them look like a greyhound. Mm-hmm.
And they're staying true to to that workhorse that can do the job. That helps us with what we're trying to do, because we've got, when you're breeding these dude horses, these trail ride horses, when I pull a horse out of the barn and it's 17 hands tall, that really is intimidating to a lot of these people.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally for us, the perfect trail ride horse for what we use in our business is 15.3 to 16 hands tall, weighing 1,450 pounds.
Yeah.
If I could have them all that size, all of our half-bloods that size, that would be great, because they're big enough to carry a load. And, you know, like it or not, as a society, I don't think we're getting as small as some of us might think we are. You know, so we get some folks that show up here that, you know, they're a little larger than what you might see.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to have a horse that's going to be able to take care of those people. And that just doesn't mean great big slab-sided. The Brabants also, in my opinion, have a better head than the other draft breeds. And then when we put them back, especially on these quarter horse mares, that offspring, they get that big bubble butt. They've got some shape to them. They're not just a big horse.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things that help us.
I was looking at your Facebook page and your website and noticed a very consistent, nice looking phenotype for Brabant, Appendix Brabant. They all have that, you know, indicative hindquarter. They've carried on the phenotype from the Brabant really well, and yeah, they're definitely lookers. So it's nice to hear that they're good
Yeah.
in the mind, that they've carried the Brabant mindset over with them too.
Yeah, they could look, you know, like a yak, and they have that Brabant mind. I'd use them. I mean, they could be that ugly, you know, but it's just so nice that they're not, that they're really attractive. But that mind, I mean, there's no other breed of horse like them. I just think if we could get people to spend some time around these Brabants, you know, and just get away from anything that they've ever learned about a horse before, and just spend some time around them,
Mm-hmm.
and find out how good-minded they are, I think, you know, that's all anybody would ever want.
So you said you like to, you know, not put them in the string until they're around 4 years old, like waiting for their growth plates to close. Is that because they're part
Correct.
draft or okay?
Yep.
How's their
Correct.
health otherwise? Have you noticed any sort of difference from, say, a full quarter horse or other half drafts? Like you said you had Percheron crosses and American Belgian crosses. How do they compare?
Yeah. Their feet, as far as the integrity of their foot, has been better for us than a lot of our American Belgian influenced horses. We call it a dinner plate foot or a platter foot, where that foot really wants to grow out. So we have we spend a lot of time in the farrier side of things on that with those horses. With our Brabant cross horses, again, this is just my brother and I's opinion. We're both in lockstep on this one. We don't love a lot of feathers, so I'm not a big Gypsy Vanner fan, just because I don't like the feather. And again, this is just me. It's not that they're not useful. They're not awesome horses. We find that if we keep those feathers at a minimum, we haven't had any problems, knock on wood, to this point whatsoever. We're pretty happy with our two stud horses and what they're doing for us in our crossbred program. Haven't had any troubles. Again, not say that we can't. They're a horse. I tell people, if it takes diesel fuel or eats hay, it's going to disappoint you. So it's, stuff can always go wrong and things of that nature. But at this point, for our, we're into this breeding our own now for, I guess this will be our 5th year. We're really happy with feet and legs. Haven't had any trouble. I'd say our average size of this, like a horseshoe, is going to be a 3 on the front and a 2 on the back on our bigger stuff. And then our smaller quarter horse mares, you're going to be looking at 2 on the front and 1 on the back. Yeah, we're in a pretty dry. It's we'll have 300 plus inches of snow in the wintertime here, but in the summertime it's really dry. So the horses' feet are pretty hard for the ones that we use here. So that, I think that helps us as well. But yeah, we don't have near the issues that we've had with some of the other breeds in the past.
Mm. What are you feeding your herd?
We feed, it's a 80-20 alfalfa grass mix hay. and we free choice feed everything here at the stables. We've got 9 different feeders that are out, and we put up all of our own hay as well. So we've got a farm in Riverton, Wyoming. That's where the stud horses and the brood mares, our breeding program's at. And that's, nobody can afford a farm in Jackson, Wyoming. It's just not realistic. So we've got our farms a few miles away, but we put up all of our own feed for our own horses, and we just feed them free choice when they're here working, and they stay in really good shape. The breed isn't one that, there's been a couple other draft breeds that we've used that those horses seem like they're a little bit, I don't want to say high maintenance, but they don't stay as plump, as full as the Brabants do. So we found that that's another, there's just all these little things that just keep stacking up of why the breed is good, and why we want to use these horses. It starts with their minds, but just things like, staying healthy and not having problems, everything from their body condition to their feet, their legs, their backs, all of that just keeps stacking up in the favor of, why we like them.
Yeah. I've heard the term husband horse quite a bit, but I think I like to think of these horses as grandma's horse, because I would put my grandma on any of my horses in a heartbeat. They're so quiet.
Oh yeah, they're anybody horses. That's what we call them. Because that's what we do with them here. Anybody that shows up, I've got people that are, I can get some man that walks up that's 6'6", weighs 280 pounds, put him on a horse and he's shaking like a leaf. And then I've had some ladies get on that have started to cry a little bit because they're so scared. And, well, we have to have horses here that we know that when that horse starts to walk, that it's going to do its job and it's going to take care of these people. And, we started this in 1991 when we transitioned away from the cattle full time into this. So we've been, experimenting, trying to find, what's going to work the best. And, because ultimately it's, you are, what you produce. So we have to make sure that we're producing the best product that we can. And my brother Steve and I, we both agree heartily that this is the best product, that we can produce. And that's why we've totally changed in the last, few years after we bought that very first team. And we've just jumped, all the way in on this Brabant deal, because it's there for what we do. There is no better product.
Well, we're so glad that you found the EBRA, and that you're a member with us now. And because we definitely adore anything with the Brabants in them, especially the appendix, because they're so diverse, and it's so wonderful to hear that they're out there entertaining and keeping people safe on the trails too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty grateful to find the appendix program with you guys as well. And like I said, we had a number of mares that, were in that 25 to 40 percentile range, that as we do sell quite a few horses as well. We had customers that, wanted some, if they could be registerable or not, and looked into it a little bit more. And you guys have been wonderful to work with. And we've been, really happy that you guys do it. It just gives us another avenue where we can, promote what we do and what we love, and it's been really good. We're pretty excited to see where this takes us.
Well, when we looked at establishing the Appendix Brabant record, we had seen a lot of sales ads prior to us opening that. We had seen a lot of sales ads of people claiming that these draft crosses had Brabant bloodlines. And we were like, how do people really know what they're getting? It could have been a Blue Roan Percheron cross and they could claim it was Brabant. But how effective on your end as somebody who's breeding and selling these horses has that been for you? Do your clients care? Like, how important is it?
It's very important. We're having, we've lost sales in the past. We've had people that says, well, if you just tell me that they're a Brabant cross, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, here's the stud horse. Here's his papers. This is dad. This is mom. So yes, I can assure you that there's papers on them. But to your point, we've been to some horse sales, and any blue roan or roan horse, any roan at all that comes through, the popular thing now, especially in the outfitter world or dude horse world, is for people to say these are Brabant crosses just because they're a roan. Well, you can look at their head, you can look at the horse and say, well, there might be a Brabant in there somewhere, but I don't think it's going to be what you think it is. But actually have a registry that tracks it to where you have to, verify that you're over that. I believe it's 23.5%.
Mm-hmm.
I might have that percentage wrong, but you have to have a horse that's above that percentile range and that threshold to be able to have that papers. It's going to really change things for us. I think we've got 16 mares in right now, and like I said, we're reaching out to people to see if they'll sell us some of those other fillies that we sold in the past back, that I know they're going to fall, that are we can DNA test and get in that and verify that they're going to be above that threshold. So we're looking to hopefully add another 5 or 6 into that. But unfortunately for us, which is also a credit to what we're doing, some of these people don't want to sell those horses that we sold them. They don't want to give them up because they can have their neighbors come over and ride them, or they can use them on their cattle ranch, or
mm-hmm.
take them up in the mountains hunting. So we've reached out to all these people, and so far we've only had one person that was willing to sell them back to us, and that was just we told them what we were doing and why we were doing it, and they support our program, and they wanted to help us expand what we're trying to do here, and we're pretty grateful for that. But everybody else that my brother or I have reached out to, they've all said, oh no, there's no way I'd sell this horse back to you.
Yes.
So,
they're a dream horse. So they're really, first of all, they're really hard to find. And once you have them in your grasp, you don't want to let them go. They're amazing.
Yeah. And definitely we got pretty fortunate. I think we got ahead of what I'll call the National Revolve craze. And I'm sure you guys have seen it where you're at, but around here, like we talked to you a second ago, where everybody says, oh, this horse is a Brabant cross.
Mm-hmm.
That's, people want that. And where we were able to get ahead of that, I think that helps us selling horses as well, where we're selling them coast to coast, where I think we were ahead of that craze by a couple of years. So I think that helped get our name recognition out there for sure. And then where we have now added this appendix side to our breeding program, I think that's just going to help us probably more than anything else that we've done, where it's just going to help us reach out to a lot more people that want a registered horse.
Yeah. If somebody's looking for one of your horses, how can they find them? Do you sell them directly, or do you take them to auction?
At this point right now, we do not sell any of our horses at auctions at all. It's all off of the farm. We like to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that, they're getting what they want. So we want to, what their goals are with the horse, what their intended use is. And then we want it, because unfortunately, sometimes people just say, I just want a roan half draft.
Right.
Well, you can find those anywhere. These are a little more different. They're a little special. So we like to talk to people. Obviously, anytime somebody can come to our place and see them in person is preferred, but we've been lucky enough to where we put them on Facebook is really the only place that we've put them on there. And typically within 2 weeks, we've sold every Brabant influenced horse we've ever put on there within a couple of weeks. We're going to redoing our website, because right now, if you go to CastagnoOutfitters.com, it's all outfitting, things of that nature. We're going to transition that. We're going to build a new website that's going to have horses for sale on it. And hopefully we'll have that up here by the time we wean this fall. But for right now, we're going to try to stay away from going to auctions and hauling our horses to auctions, just selling them all private treaty. directly to customers, and then we use Yoder Transport. He's based out of Iowa, and he goes nationwide twice a month, and he swings in and picks them up, and then he whisks them away to, wherever they're headed. Primarily right now, we're selling most of the horses into the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we had one go to New York last fall, and then we got a couple headed to Florida. We had one go to Indiana. So we're trying to reach out a little farther east, and then, continue to here in the Rocky Mountain region to keep supplying folks that are looking for these horses here, especially in the mountainous regions. And, a lot of hunters around this area, and we have a lot of rugged country, and these horses just, you're going to line up and draw a line in the sand and say, okay, let's have a race. You're going to beat me every time. But if we say, let's get to the top of that steep mountain, I'll be eating my sandwich at lunch, waiting for you to catch up to me. These horses just climb. They got a big bottom to them. And we like using them in our outfitting business when we're guiding elk hunters, just because they think they don't react adversely if you put them in a tough situation. If you're riding through a lot of deadfall and they've got to kind of pick their way through, they kind of look at it. They got a good enough mind where they can see, here's an obstacle. I'm not just either going to plow through it or I'm going to shy backwards and go somewhere else. They're going to look at it and they're going to try to, work through a solution to the problem.
Right. They're thoughtful.
And then one other thing that we're toying with the idea is we've had a few people reach out that are asking for Brabant mules. My brother Steve owns a red roan mammoth jack, and we raise our own mules for our outfitting business, and all the mares that we've used in the past have all been either Bergeron mares. We've got string of black mules, and then we've got American blonde Belgian mares for the sorrel mules. And we've had, I would say, 8 to 10 inquiries about Brabant mules. So
I think that's fabulous.
That's on the horizon for us.
Do you think you'll put them in the Appendix Brabant record as well?
Yeah, that was going to be a question that I was going to ask for the registry department if they would be eligible.
They are.
And
they are. And again, it goes down to for people who are breeding them, validating the bloodlines, and that's why it exists. And why people may scratch their head like, why would you register a mule? And that's exactly why. So you can verify that mule is a Brabant cross.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. There's some follow up to it, because there's some other organizations out there that they don't ask for any verification. They don't do any research of any kind. It's just basically, if you're willing to spend X amount of dollars, they'll give you a piece of paper that says that this or that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that there's a threshold you have to meet. I understand there's going to be some give and take on any appendix bred or any appendix registry, but where you've got some solid guidelines in there that you have to verify, you have to meet this certain threshold. I think that's pretty good. Just want to thank you again for the opportunity to, kind of tell you guys a little bit about what we do and why we do it. And we really appreciate it.
Is there a way that if somebody wants to contact you directly to inquire about horses or talk to you about your breeding program, how they can do that other than your website?
Yeah, we actually prefer people just to call my brother Steve or myself, either one of us. My cell phone number is 307-690-2667, and my brother Steve is 307-690-1282, and my email is bronkwrestling@gmail.com.
Great. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.